Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plate Stack Chat. And of course, Roderick, who is impatiently waiting for us. My name is Jason. You can find me on Instagram as JasonCF Media. Feel free to give that a follow if you like. And on this show, I get some wonderful people and I bring them out for a fun chat. So today I am joined by two incredible athletes. First up, we have paracanoe European gold medalist, who isn't just impressive on the water, but also in a CrossFit box, having made it to the Adaptive CrossFit Games in 2022 and 2023 and finishing second twice. Most recently, I got to watch her competing in person at Adaptive. And if you want to know just how impressive she is, just go to her Instagram and watch a clip of her doing not just a legless rope climb, but doing it with her chair attached as well. Please welcome the lovely Ellen Field.
Hello.
Hello, Ellen. Gold medalist, hey?
That's all right.
Yeah, that's a great thing to have in your bio. So well done.
Thank you. Little flex.
What a flex. I've got a lot of questions for you, Ellen. But before we get to them, we need to bring out our second guest. So joining Ellen and myself is not just a fantastic athlete, but super friend of the show. She is a returning guest, having been on the first episode of this show when it relaunched. And on that episode, we talked about her comeback and how confident we were that she would get back to the CrossFit Games. Now, technically, this year was her 7th Games ticket and her best finish yet, taking 4th place. But personally, her most impressive performance was agreeing to jump on this show at very late notice. One of my favorite CrossFit athletes is, of course, the wonderful Bethany Flores.
Hello. Thanks for the great introduction.
I've been working on that a lot since you were last on. Now, we're running a little bit late, and the reason we're running a bit late, and is really making me feel uncomfortable during this whole thing, is my headphones just broke. So I can't hear myself now. I can't hear the levels of the different mics. I'm
Such a weird voice. It's all squeaky.
I'm really not comfortable. But anyway, here we are. We mentioned Roderick, not just because he was sat there moaning that we hadn't started yet, but Jake's already in the comments. But what ties you two nicely together is, so you've been to the Adaptive CrossFit Games, Ellen. Bethany, you, as I mentioned, you were on the very first episode when we relaunched this show. You were here with the one and only Mr. Roderick Lopez, aka Meme for Time.
Yeah, that was
now
fun.
He has just put up recently a series of behind the scenes videos from this year's Adaptive Games from Wheelwad. So I've put a link in the comments. So if people want to go and watch that series of videos, I think there's 3 out at the moment. And I know this year he's going all in on trying to highlight the adaptive athletes. So if you're here because you know Ellen is a great ambassador for that, well then Roderick's doing his part as well over there in in the States. So I thought I'd throw that out now quickly.
All right, I have a question for Ellen. What do you think about the games being separate from the individual athletes? Do you like that, or is like the consensus of all the athletes like, man, I wish it was with the actual games still?
I think just from the representation we had from the last 2 games, where I think the filming wasn't the best and there wasn't as much coverage as I think there could have been for the adaptives. I think one of them was it was filmed from across a car park or something like that. And obviously we had the thing where not all of the adaptive categories were included in the games, so we only had certain that were in-person games. The rest were just online finals, which kind of defeats the point of being in-person competition.
Not the same.
I think Wheelwad is such a good organization that they know adaptives, they're run by adaptives, so they've been able to set up I think the games in the best way they could for in person. I mean, I would have loved to go see it, but everyone that went there seemed to have such a good experience. So I mean,
okay, that's good.
I think it was so nice to see obviously the adaptives come in maybe was it 2-3 years ago when they actually first put the categories in. But I think there just wasn't enough push. I think it could have been a lot better than the representation that we got, and obviously now that we have a separate thing, I think it ran a lot smoother and was a lot better.
Okay, that's kind of what my thought was, is I think it's a good thing that every, I guess, division has their own weekends, but at the same time, I don't know, it's like the games, so it's you want everyone to be there at the same time because it's cool. But yeah, so there's like that dichotomy of like, oh, I feel bad that they're not with us on the same weekend, but I'm hoping and crossing my fingers that y'all guys get more and deserve more. So that's good.
Yeah, that's my thoughts.
I think as well, like, it's very different from the age groups. I also just have to pull up a few comments quickly. So Roderick was there. He says Willwood having a separate competition was huge, 3 times bigger than last year.
Nice.
Barkley saying that he can't say, but he wants to support us. Well done, Barkley. Love it. I was
Thank
just
you.
thinking about him today, actually. And then, what was Jake saying? Depends on what you're after. It was bigger opportunity for athletes, but less coverage. Coverage will build over time and is arguably less important. And then Roderick's also saying, seemed like athletes were cool with the separate comp. I think, like, for the age group, CrossFit know exactly what they're doing when it comes to programming the workouts, because you just scale them a little bit. But, you know, somebody who's, you know, I mean, even like in the first divisions of the age groups, when they're kind of just become masters, you don't even need to adjust
35.
them much at all, right? The problem with the adaptive like competitions was they were just so like so I started following the adaptive stuff because I was getting sent so much stuff from adaptive athletes that were like, can you talk about this? Can you talk about this? Like, this is happening. This is happening. And it was all kind of, you know, stuff that wasn't going right. So,
Yeah.
and there's so many categories that were just either ignored or only online and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think for the age groups being like, oh, we're sort of our own separate thing now. Oh, it was nice when we were at the games, is a little bit more, you know, how people feel about it, I guess. Like, if they really want to be with the games athletes, or, you know, if they want to. I think for the
Yeah.
adaptive, though, it makes a huge difference in just actually having an ability to compete, you know, in the correct divisions or with the correct standards. So that was interesting. The
Yeah.
event that I actually met Ellen at, I think I saw Nigel in here somewhere. Did I? Nigel's there as well. Yeah. So we were at
Nigel.
wearing the shirt as well. What Active? And
Represent.
like, What Active completely blew my mind with regards to like adaptive competitions, because I went to that thinking I know how it works within the adaptive sort of CrossFit community and the competitions. Something just fell and broke.
Sorry, just fell. It's fine.
You okay,
My
Ellen? Do we
boyfriend's
have to
trying
come and
to bring
rescue you?
a table over for me, and he's just accidentally checked the table instead.
Nice.
Oh man, that happens.
But it was great that they it was a pairs comp, Bethany. Get this. It was a pairs comp, but it was one adaptive athlete and one able-bodied athlete. So they were
Oh,
like
I think
teaming up.
okay, I've done something like that or been a part of something like that. It was like a local one in
Yeah.
Texas, and it was so cool. I mean, like I wasn't participating, I was just kind of volunteering, but
Yeah.
it was like really inspiring, and that was like my first experience as well. It was super cool.
But it was what was really nice about it was, one, for the like adaptive athletes, it was great. But even
Yeah.
for like, there were people there that weren't even the athletes you'd normally expect to see competing. You know, it wasn't the people I would see when I went to other kind of local comps. And I was talking to them and I'm like, you know, do you normally compete? No, I never compete. But this is the only time I ever get to do a competition, you know, with my wife or my husband or, you know,
Mm,
or whoever, my best friend. So like, we're doing it because we can do it together.
yeah.
And then like Nigel had sent out emails to all the teams before, really like specifying like what adaptions they needed. And so then they had the same judge for all the workouts. And they were like, you know, this is the movement. Show us your RX standard. Okay, that's the standard. That's what you need to keep doing through the event. And it was just like, there was so much nuance to kind of, oh, technically you're maybe in the sort of the same category, or you've got the same thing, but it really allowed for the differences, which
Mm.
I thought it was
Yeah.
really great. And
Where was that one at?
It
so that
was
was
in
CrossFit Southampton.
Southampton?
CrossFit Solent.
Southampton.
Yeah, it was in Southampton
Solent,
at CrossFit
yeah.
Solent. In
Okay.
February, it's going to be at the Gymshark facility in Birmingham. So that'll be
It is indeed.
a big
Oh,
one.
nice.
I've
That'll be
been
cool.
invited back. They said I can come back, which is nice. I have recorded a load of stuff from it, but unlike Roderick, I'm really slow at getting stuff out, so I haven't yet put it together. But the video will be coming at some point. I
I
interviewed
have another
Ellen there.
question for Ellen. Have you
Yes,
done
shoot.
Wadapalooza?
I have, yes. I
Okay.
went to Wadapalooza maybe, I want to say 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
I
How was your experience
maybe,
there?
It was good. There was a few things that, I mean, I really enjoyed my experience. That was my first ever live comp, because before that we had like nothing in the UK. In the last couple of years it's really creeped up. But there was a few things, like I think again it was like adaptives weren't on like the main stage, they were on stages like the further stages. Or like the access actually around the comps was really random. Like there would just be like random slabs of wood, and like I'm okay navigating most territories, but like a lot of people aren't. And yeah, it was good because I really enjoyed the fact that we got to compete and stuff like that. I think the programming, because obviously Kevin did it, and he's obviously, if you have an adaptive doing adaptive programming, they've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. So the programming was really good. It was just, I think again, it's not even just coverage, it's just like representation, so people know you're there. Like it would have been nice. They did a lot with like they have like other people that can qualify for Wodapalooza, not just the elite athletes, and all of those would be on the main stages after the like elites heats or something. And I think they could have done a similar thing with the adaptives, but we were always on random stages or just like a little bit later than everyone else, and it means that people miss the chance or maybe don't get to see like obviously what we're all about. And we've got some really cool people that you can go see.
And doing incredible things. I didn't even think about that, but like just the access to get from the warm-up area to the stage, you know. And I don't think about that stuff, so it's good to like get that out even on
but
like
the thing is, like,
a platform like this.
Like you don't think about it really until like you're in the situation to think about it. So it's like, it's just like, it's usually just like you get an adaptive to check it over and they'll probably know. Like I obviously didn't know before I was in a chair. So now I'm in a chair, I'm so much more aware of access, but before I wasn't. So like it's only just like from experience that you figure these things out.
I have a question. I have another question then.
Involved in like organizing it, because they will think about those kind of things. Whereas, you know, so before you ask your next question, Bethany, I love that you've got questions loaded up. You make it so easy. This is why you're one of my favorite guests.
I'm just intrigued. I'm intrigued.
No, do you know what as well? I needed, because, you know, Ellen's a great athlete and I'm not. So I was like, I need another brilliant athlete to come and ask the correct questions. So that's why you're here. So you're doing your job perfectly. I just need to show a few things here. Let's see.
I'll write it down.
So Justin's saying having our own comp allowed for better coverage of all divisions, which is what we needed. Abigail said, I think with more time, having the separate weekend for each division will help bring unique audiences to each weekend and give the opportunity to give more viewership to everyone. Absolutely. The only problem, and it's not like the adaptive, it's the fact that they put teens and masters on the same weekend. So you kind of like, what are you going to watch? And then the fact that, you know, the adaptive games was on at the same time as Wodapalooza. So again, you're kind of fighting for how much time have people got that they can dedicate to watching fitness. And, you know, so, but that's fine. The separate comps, I think, was perfect. It gives a better platform to show what the athletes are capable and not shadowed by the individuals.
That's Brett.
That's Brett, yes. Do you know Brett?
Brett's an adaptive.
Yeah.
I think I know Ward Pleaser.
And Nigel is inviting everybody. So he's saying that, you know, Bethany, you're welcome to come to the next Wodaptive event. He's invited Roderick as well.
Yeah, invite me.
Roderick is also asking how he missed you at Wheelwad. No, you weren't at Wheelwad.
I wasn't at Wheelwad. This year obviously coincided with Paris, and there would be a tiny slot that I could have made it for Paris for the Paralympics, but I had a bit of an injury and it ended up going a bit awry. But like, I was more like, I want to focus on canoeing for this season, whilst it's like the last bit, so I could possibly make it to Paris. Didn't, and then I was like, it's fine. We've got 4 more years to the next games. I can participate in the CrossFit season next year. Exactly.
Yeah, you can hang out with Bethany. She'll come and watch.
Yeah.
And then Jocelyn is saying, if I need any info from an athlete that competed this weekend, happy to help. Was in upper 2. Okay, right. 2 points of contact. Right, got you. I'm slowly learning all the divisions. Jocelyn, shoot me a message. Come on the show. You're more than welcome anytime. Okay, I think and Jeffrey is just loving that it's a Bethany takeover. So.
Oh, sorry. I have questions. I wrote them down.
You wrote them down. Oh,
that's
it has come to me right now. They just come to me right
You
now.
are the
But
yeah.
but I'm intrigued. I'm like genuinely intrigued. Okay, so my other question, so do you think if Wadapalooza, so you know how at least in the Miami one, they did like a 2-day competition for an individual, 2-day competition for team, and they have those kind of like separate. Do you think that would be beneficial if they did I mean, it would extend the week, but like 2 days either prior to the individual starting or somehow kind of like being in between those two. So like if individuals started on, let's say Wednesday or Thursday, they did 2 days, and then adaptives came kind of like in the middle between individual and team. I wonder if that would give y'all a little bit more, time on the big stage.
I think I'd like to see it like sandwiched in between, like the second one you said, because I just think it brings everyone together more. I like the whole like you see adaptives and like the elite competing in the same day. I think that's what it's like all about. So you're not just seeing like I don't like the separation so much of things. Like obviously with the games being separate and the real world being games, we got better competition out of it and we got like a whole better games as a thing. But I think just at actual events, it's just nice to see everyone being able to compete on the stage like at similar times.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, that'd be cool to see that kind of transform a little bit. It'd be interesting.
I think as well with like what would have been, I mean, we discussed this a little while ago when we were talking, maybe I was talking with like Kelly Friel or someone from the Masters, but we're saying how like the order that they'd done, obviously the games this year, stuff happened that changed all of this anyway, but if they put the games after the adaptive and the age groups, in all that kind of downtime where we're just watching an empty, stadium while they're like coming up in 2 hours is the next event, like they could have been showing highlight reels from the teens, the masters, and the adaptive. And even if you didn't get to see it this year, you'd see like the highlight reels and be like, oh, actually, they're really impressive. Oh, next year or there's going to be an event at, in Miami or whatever, I might tune in. Instead, we just get dead air where they're not highlighting anything. So I think it's sort of taking those opportunities to highlight what adaptive athletes are doing, or teens and masters as well, just so people that are kind of casual viewers just tuning in to see the Bethany Floreses of the world compete, and then they accidentally see Ellen's. That's the idea. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
I
cool
just
to
feel
watch,
like, I mean, in general, I just feel like CrossFit and the athletes can have a better partnership, and it goes both ways. Even thinking about this past weekend going to Wadapalooza, SoCal, and this is not to bash Wadapalooza whatsoever, but like I did a volunteer workout Saturday night with whoever wanted to stay volunteer wise, and it wasn't advertised whatsoever, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to advertise it, and there was like a good amount of people that showed up, but it could have been this bigger thing, right? If we would have worked together, and like you could have invited, this is what my husband said, but he's like, you could have invited, just people in the stands and made them pay like $10 to come and work out. Because it was like Chandler Smith on Friday night, or it was like Chandler one of the nights, and then Ellie Turner one of the nights, and then me. So it's like, we had some really cool athletes out there. And it's just like, we could have advertised and worked together better. But there's like such a bigger scale of that. Like you could do that for the CrossFit Games, adaptive games. Like there's just so much room for potential and growth that no one's taking advantage of.
Well, I agree. There needs to be a lot more equal representation for everyone, not just adaptives, but there just needs to be more push, because I think like missing opportunities like that, like I know so many people that would want to just like jump on a workout, and if that's not advertised, how are you supposed to know that's happening?
Exactly. So
well,
I don't know. And I don't know how to change it.
I didn't know you were there, Bethany, until I saw like your stories popping up about it. So
it's like
all anyone was talking about was like the team competition thing. I think maybe what's becoming quite good now is sort of these like exhibitions. So like at Wadapalooza having the the Team America and Team World, and Fit Fest last year they did it with these like mixed teams. This year again they're doing a similar thing. They're like Team Europe, Team World. I mean, I would love to see like the athletes we all know and recognize because they get so much publicity within CrossFit taking on some adaptive workouts. like
Yeah, that'd be
partner them
cool.
up with another adaptive athlete.
I
Like
think
like Bethany, you join Ellen and we give you a chair and we're like, right, this is the workout, this is the way she's going to do, this is the RX standards, you're going to do the same thing.
Yeah,
And we
I'd
get to
love to
watch
see
like
that.
a
I think
pairs comp
I've
like
seen
that.
maybe 2 athletes do that before. I think maybe
it'd give us a humble.
Justin jumped in a chair with Jed. I think it was just for like a social thing, I think, but they did a workout and Justin had to do it at the same standards as one of the seated athletes. And I've seen a few, but I would love to see it like in general, just across, so just people can understand. I mean, it brings more light to how adapters work.
Yeah.
I'm noticing what's nice is that Roderick has thrown up some other people that did it. Colton Mertens did it.
Yeah.
Josh Bridges did it. And I like that he said Lauren Fisher did it. And he's left that for last. She did that on his YouTube channel. So it's good to promote other people first. But you see, like I watched that video that he'd done because that was interesting. It was interesting to see how hard she found it. Like she was dying trying to do the workout. And I think that's kind of what people need to see is it's not a scaled workout. It's adapted. And there's still this, I think there's still this idea of, oh, it's scaled. And like, it's not scaled. It's really hard. Try it. Give it a go. It's really, really hard. But it's just adapted because, they can't do physically certain movements. So it's adapted, but the stimulus is the same and it's just as hard. And
if not harder.
If not harder, yeah. They had like shuttle runs in at adaptive, and they're like having to see them like spin the chair. Oh, and I really love what this was a nice thing about adaptive as well. Something I really appreciated was like because you had the different division, it was all kind of going at the same time, but there were different adaptive divisions sort of competing at the same time. So you would have like here is a box, and the RX standard would be box jumps or like box jump overs, I guess it was. And so you would have with the able-bodied athletes, some were doing box jumps, some were doing step ups because they were scaled. And then within the adaptive division you had what was it called, Ellen, what you were doing?
The U-turns. The U-turns around the box, the spinny things. Yeah.
And then you had like those that maybe had prosthetic legs were doing step ups or stuff like that. But you could just see how ultimately it was get from one side of the box to another. And these are the different ways we can adapt, making that happen. So I really enjoyed that.
Coming back on what you said, I think there's a big perception in a lot of adaptive sports, like Paralympic or like regardless, that it's like participation. Like you can have a disability and turn up and you're immediately like an elite athlete. Whereas I think a lot of people forget that these people train the same. I saw it ages ago. I think if these people train the same like as Olympians, but they train with the added difficulty, if you know what I mean. Like it's the same training, we do like the same amount, the same intensity. I think people just forget that like you don't immediately just fall into being like fit. You still have to be fit to be in these sports.
Yeah, it's not like I mean, I think it's similar to people that like it's to a degree of like, oh, if I become a masters athlete, suddenly I'll be able to go to the games. It's like, no, you'll still need to be super fit. Like, I mean, in my masters category, I've got Rich Froning, Scott Panchek. Like, I'm not going to the games, but at the same time, I know like if I was in a car accident, similar to you, Ellen, and I, lost the use of my legs, I don't think next year I'm going to the adaptive games because suddenly it's easy. Like it's I'm not fit enough to go to the games now, and I won't be fit enough to go to the games as an adaptive athlete. But you're right, people, I just think they don't see kind of how hard you're working.
I think part of the perception is like there's two. I think because this happens, I think with the normal games as well, is that when you're in the same room as someone getting ready for the games or even semifinals, you just feel like you're just in reach of what they're doing. And so you're like, oh, I can do that. I can do what she's doing. I can do it even better. And so that perception kind of gets skewed. And then obviously when you watch it on TV too, because like even I feel that way with certain things. I like watch something, I'm like, I could do that. And then you try it and you're like, oh, never mind. And so it's like people's perceptions kind of get skewed a little bit in the best way possible. I mean, that's what our job is, right? Is to inspire people and make it look easy and to have people be like, I want to do that and I can do that. But yeah, they don't realize it's the unseen hours, right? It's all the unseen things that are going on that help you get to where you're at. And it's a lot of unseen hours.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going to the game, because I don't use those unseen
You don't have any unseen hours?
I don't have any
They're all
unseen hours.
seen.
I've got 2 kids. My unseen hours are gone.
Wiping butts and digging into the toilet.
Well, they're older than I'm a masters athlete, so also that means
Oh,
my kids
okay.
are a lot older than. Yeah, my
For
son
some
started-
people, I don't know. Here, there's people 38 having babies. So
That's true. Well, that's true. Yeah, okay, all right, I'll give you that. I'm feeling my age this year. My son started like secondary school. That's kind of like high school for us. So
oh,
he wears
wow.
like a jacket and tie to school now because we're in
That's
England.
adorable.
But,
I think I wore a jacket and tie.
made me feel so old. Like, I still feel like I just left school. Yeah. Anyway,
You definitely don't look like you have a kid that's in high school or secondary school.
my son's 11, so that's
11. Oh, okay.
So it's a bit young.
Okay,
So
I was thinking like 15 or 16. Or...
no, not yet. That's
You look that age. I'm just kidding.
like college for us. Oh, I look that age. Thanks a lot.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I grew a beard and everything, Bethany, just to try and look older.
Hey, you're gonna appreciate. I mean, that's how my husband is too. Like everyone thinks he's a lot younger than he is, and it's like he says it's very frustrating, especially I think as a male, because you're like, I just want people to see me a certain way and respect where I'm at. But I'm like,
he's not
trust
going
me.
to say that. He'll be 70, and everyone will be like, "You're baby faced."
Exactly.
And everyone will be happy.
Yeah, good genetics.
Yeah.
That was my second question, or fifth question to Ellen is I wanted to know how you got into a wheelchair without trying to be too rude about it, I guess, but Jason kind of alluded to it, but I just wanted to hear your story.
This is what Roderick's been sticking around for. He loves the story. Like he loves to find out the origin stories. So
yeah,
hot
same.
tea. He's like, what happened?
Yeah.
And I found out yours, Ellen, because I went scrolling back far on your Instagram.
Love that.
So
and like how long you've been in a wheelchair too. I think that would be interesting for everyone to hear, including me.
I'm super open about it. So I've been injured 5 years. I was in a car crash when I was 18. Broke my spine, like T11, T12, and then just paralyzed from like waist down.
Instantly?
I have like some hip, yeah, pretty much. I have hip flexor function, but not really any other function like below knee. So that's what puts me in the certain category for the adaptives, is because I have hip flexor function, but not other functions. And obviously it depends on where you break your back. But yeah, that was 5 years ago.
Wow.
18-year-old me.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Because I read that you were asleep in the passenger seat.
But everyone was asleep in the car, including the driver. So that's so it wasn't the best, but yeah, basically I was asleep in the car. Driver fell asleep, went into traffic, then the traffic behind went into me, and then ultimately that's what would have caused my injury most probably, because the other people in the car just weren't injured, which it just happens sometimes. It's just potluck, but like so that's pretty much what happened. I don't have like I could have said like attacked by sharks or something. I could have really gone in there like.
Well, I don't know. I mean, attacked by a shark for your specific injury, I think would be very impressive on the part of the shark.
I fought off the shark.
And I survived. Yeah, that's pretty very tragic experience. Like I don't know how you felt after, or like just a bunch of shock or frustration or anger.
I think it's like a whole mix of things, because I ended up being in hospital for like 5-6 months because I had I burst my pancreas. There was a load of other issues, but I think I've always come from a sporting background, so very much like as soon as like it was really weird. I was really happy on the day. Like I had like my injury, and then like I had to get like cut out by like 5 people, and they put me in an ambulance, and I was like, can I play my own music? And I was kind of talking to them like normal, and they were kind of like, what is wrong with this girl? And then it gets to the point that I was just like in such a good mood. But I think that's usually how I cope with most things, is kind of like switching default into being like, let's distract. And then ultimately like some man had to come and tell me, bless him. And I felt so bad because I think I must have reminded him as a young daughter or something, but he came over to me and had to tell me that I probably wouldn't be able to walk again. And I was like, well, am I going to live? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm fine then, aren't I? Because like we can move forwards from that, because it was kind of like, you've always got to kind of switch on the other side. As soon as I figured out that I could go from being in able-bodied sports to para sports, it wasn't the mobility that I focused on. It was the fact that I could go back and do what I did before. It was more kind of just moving on with my life rather than kind of like being stuck on what had changed it. It wasn't like, it's not life ending, it's life changing. So you kind of move with that.
Jeffrey Birch was asking if you did CrossFit before the accident.
I didn't, but I did know about CrossFit because I was a kickboxer and a boxer from the age of 12. So I went through that, and there was another girl who was also a GB gymnast at the same time as me, who was in the same school, and she left gymnastics and went to CrossFit, and I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that, because I saw her doing some like snatches and some ring muscle ups, and I was like, amazing, but never had the chance to try it. So when I figured out, I actually met another adaptive who owns a CrossFit gym in England, Murray, randomly at this wheelchair boxing event. And I was like, oh my God, there's adaptive CrossFit. And he was like, yes. And I was like, where in the gyms near me do they do it? And they recommended this gym. I went, and I literally got stuck ever since.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
I mean, so I guess it's hard, like any sport that you would have done before, it would have changed dramatically, like after the accident. But you're saying that you'd done kickboxing from like an early age.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you probably had, you were pretty proud of your legs and what they could do, like within the sport itself. So like mentally, how was that for you to now have to be like, okay, this is one of my strengths,
I
that I
think
now need to find something else?
It was a big switch, because I used to kickbox for GB, so like I was already competing high level anyway before. So I was quite like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics. This is kind of like my forward path. And then I actually got an ACL injury 9 months before I broke my back, and I was actually rehabbing from that. I just got to like knee all standard, and then broke my back, and now I've got a useless knee. Do you know what I mean? So I was literally just like, I was already injured, like having to rehab, and then it was kind of like, oh, we're gonna have to go through this whole process again of having to learn how to do things and like how I do them now. And that was kind of like, it was a lot to get used to. Yeah, it was an odd experience. Kind of feels a bit like a fever dream. Like everyone always says that stuff like this will fly past and you don't believe it at the time, and then it does. Like if I thought back now to me having to like learn how to sit in a chair, because like there's loads of things you have to learn to do that you don't think about. You think you break your back, you get put in a wheelchair and you carry on, whereas there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that you kind of have to learn. If I thought back to that, it feels so like natural now. So it's just, yeah, it's wild.
I will say this though, I think it takes a special type of mindset and personality to be able to do what you're doing. So one, I hope that you give yourself enough credit for that and that you're like super proud of yourself. But two, it's just, I think that's the beauty of like sports, one, but two, like it really does take some type of mindset to be like, okay, like this happened to me, but there's still so much more that I can do, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't do that, even with sport backgrounds, like even with the abilities that they still have and can do or did. It's like, I don't know, it'd be really hard to do that. So I hope that you take pride in that.
Yeah, it's sort of, I think for a lot of people it's like grief, because it's like you're kind of grieving a life from before, but it's kind of like you've got to switch it at some point and be like, am I going to continue like mourning for something that I've lost, or try and live with what I do now, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Do you think this, why again, like couples back to why, having like the adaptive games be broadcast on their own thing, having, highlighting the numerous different divisions, so it's not just like the 5 kind of most common, but seeing kind of all these different adaptive, like for people that are in, that find themselves in a situation like yours, that maybe were sporty, or they loved like playing sports, doing sports, maybe they used to do CrossFit, and then seeing that it's there and that it's available and it's something they can do, because potentially when they when they first kind of are adapting to this new life, they're probably thinking, well, these are the kind of things I used to enjoy doing. Well, I can't do them anymore. And maybe they're not really aware of like what's out there and what they can do. And I think even like, again, the beauty of like CrossFit and the fact that it's infinitely scalable. So in the sense of, okay, I'm just going to make sure I cover myself before the adaptives come after me. It's infinitely scalable in the sense that someone could have exactly the same, diagnosis as you coming out of the hospital, but they don't have your background of being, an elite athlete beforehand. And so maybe even now they wouldn't be able to do what you can do in a chair, but they can still do a CrossFit workout, because just as we can scale a normal workout, we can scale an adapted workout, right? So, I might, I'm just thinking how I might come out and be like, yeah, I've seen like the Paralympics. I know there are these incredible individuals that can do amazing things despite the fact that, they've lost their legs, but they're incredible. But that's like so far beyond what I think I would be able to do.
Yeah.
Compared to, I've seen people at my local gym doing these fun workouts. I could probably manage that. Like, that's doable, right? That's something I could try and achieve. But if nobody knows that this stuff is happening, then where do you go?
I agree, because like there isn't like a stuff put in place for kids to join in, disabled kids, because obviously not everyone has an injury through trauma or anything like that. For disabled kids to join in like PE at school, like they don't have the same thing that able-bodied kids do, where we go through and we have like grassroots sports and we learn that like fitness for fun, like we can learn to enjoy things without having it to be like competitive or like Paralympic level. And disabled people don't have the same like level as that. And I mean, like, CrossFit is for all abilities of like and all ages, isn't it? So like I think that there needs to be a more promotion that like you don't have to just do this if you want to be like top. You can just do it because you enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? It should be available to everyone.
Yeah. And can we talk about how insanely expensive everything is? Like, Bethany, if you think CrossFit equipment is expensive, like for us, so when I went to What Active, they had like the mono rope, so that was fun. I gave that a go. That was I did okay.
That was fun.
But they have the
have you seen rope. Them? They get the able-bodied to do it. It's the single arm rope.
Yeah,
which was really cool. So they got the able bodies to do those instead of using normal skipping ropes. Ooh. So it was like they had to use disabled equipment for it, which was really cool because most people hadn't.
Oh, that's fun.
But that's like for those that can, have only got one arm. For the seated athletes, they've got like kind of two ropes that they have to swing, and they have to hit the floor. Okay. Somebody from my box reached out to me and said, hey, what are those ropes called? Because I've got a friend in a chair who, wants to start doing CrossFit. I'm trying to get him to start doing CrossFit. So that was funny to watch Jason. Nigel, please. I think I was exceptional. So I messaged, one of the athletes and asked them, what was the rope? Do you know the name of the rope that you're using so we can find it? And they sent me a link. And I went to the link, and I think it was like £170 or something like that for this. Like,
not surprised.
Well,
not surprised.
I will defend people that are making equipment for those that need it adapted. If it is like, well, we've had to kind of custom measure and make this for you specifically to fit your chair or your dimensions or whatever. It's and it's using special materials that are really expensive. Like, okay, I can kind of get it. But I reckon I could make these ropes. Like they're two ropes and handles. Like they don't look that complicated to make.
I think we've had it before at Opens where athletes have made their own ropes because you will cut them to like specify, and they wrap tape around them.
Oh, I just could not believe it, and I'm thinking that's like, I guess you don't need that to do CrossFit kind of thing. Like I get it, but how frustrating is like a barrier to entry that. Okay, if you want to do it, you're going to need a few bits. And we're like, do I need a pair of shoes? Maybe I'll get a rope. I can probably find one, for $20. That's fine. That'll do for now. And then you're sort of like saying, okay, well done. You're coming back from an injury. Your life has changed. You want to start doing this. That's wonderful. Here's a bill for all the stuff you need to, but like,
It's like across all, like if anything's labeled as like disability equipment, it's always like 10 times the price, and I'm not entirely sure where that is. And any
Probably
like
because the demand, right? Because the demand isn't as high, and so because of that, they can make it more expensive. I would assume. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is
I think a lot of
frustrating.
it is that it's all like, for a lot of people, a lot of things are all self-funded, and I think
Yeah.
that's the problem. Is like especially like, I know like amputees or like people that use prosthetics having to like buy legs, and them being like, I mean, like I've heard them be like upwards of like 20 grand. Like it's a lot for self-funding something. Like I think a lot of the time you do have assistance from like government, but I don't think it's as much as, you can't have the exact kind of thing that you need for like everyday life, if that makes sense. Like I imagine my chair as like a pair of like really well-worn walking shoes. Like I sit in this all the time, so I need it to be suited to me all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Meme for Time was talking about the wheelchair cost as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that like
too.
a typical chair could break under the stress of sport. There was some
Mine has broken.
with multiple chairs at this event that I went to, which I also found fascinating. But
a lot of athletes do look in the basketball chairs, but a lot of like, you can get certain chairs on like wheelchair services, but obviously, like I said, if you want something really tailored to you, it does have to be self-funded.
Yeah.
Jeffrey again was saying he saw you doing the rope climb with your chair. How much does your chair weigh?
So I actually have a really light chair, because this one is like, it's like carbon fiber. It's like top end. It's a good chair, but this one only weighs about 5-6 kilos. It doesn't weigh that much.
So
But
you just
still.
make it just looks a lot more impressive.
It's just
But
awkward
still.
to carry up a rope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bethany's got to do it in a ruck, and we're like going, yeah, whatever. Look at Ellen, she's doing it in a chair. Like that's incredible.
Seated.
And you're just like 5 kilo chair. Going, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's way more
But
impressive.
Nigel mentioned that it's the same for the cost of the EcoBike handles for the seated athletes. So have you seen? So these are like, they're just metal handles, Bethany, that attach to the handles of the EcoBike, so that you can sit facing like the EcoBike in the chair and just do the arm portion. So I mean, again, they're
super
like
expensive.
2 bits of metal and a clamp, basically, aren't they? That's all you really need.
People just
Well, when
take
we're at
advantage.
Rogue,
To jump in now, he's going to come out and storyboard all this adaptive equipment.
Yeah.
Well, Bethany, are you going to Rogue, by the way?
No, sadly, I decided not to. I really wanted to go, but my husband and I were talking about it, and he's just kind of like, you're on the upward slope, so like let's take advantage of this and not be silly. And plus, like, it's a super heavy competition too, and so I don't think it would showcase me very well at this point of my career. Kind of like last year, I was standing there for like 2 events. I was just like, okay.
Well,
it just wasn't there yet.
In that case,
anyways.
I know Roderick's going to be there. So me and Meme for Time, we'll team up. We'll corner those, the big wigs at Rogue, and we'll have a word about this, about the cost of the equipment and what's going on, and that they need to get behind the adaptive athletes and start, producing stuff that.
Is there any sponsored Rogue athletes that are adaptive?
I'm not sure.
That would be kind of cool.
I'm not sure.
We need that.
Yeah, not that I've seen. No,
I can't see.
I mean,
I can't
Ellen,
think
you're
of
sponsored
many.
you're a Gymshark athlete, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Nice.
So,
that's cool.
I think that's off like the back of, obviously brands like that tend to sponsor for like individual. It tends to be based on like media following rather than like just like which is like that suits their brand, but not everyone's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's also it's quite cynical when you start like really going in and looking at kind of the sponsorship behind adaptive athletes and things like that as well. I was speaking to a guy at the at my local affiliate. He was mentioning, he'd seen me post up about the comp I'd been at, and he was saying that he worked for an airline, and he was working with all the Paralympic athletes, not this year, but the 4 years ago. I was talking to them about like the funding they get, and there was one person there that was saying that like, they got, I can't remember, I think maybe they only had one arm, but they were like doing archery or something like that. And so it was like, it's such an amazing like photo op that they get sponsorship. because it plays really well to like, oh, we can kind of show off, oh,
Highlight
look
that.
how incredible this is.
Yeah.
And so depending on like kind of how good it looks sometimes, that influences if they're gonna really get behind people. And and that's really hard for those that have like invisible disabilities, because it's like, well, yeah, but why are they doing something different? We can't see that visually, so that's not going to work well on a post or an ad or something like that, which is a shame, because they're probably having to spend out ridiculous amounts of money on stuff for them that people don't realize sort of need. So anyway,
and work just
Brett
as
is
hard.
volunteering as tribute to be sponsored by Rogue, so kind of him, very kind. Yeah, got to help them grow with their socials to get eyes on the division. End of the day, eyes equals money. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So but I think that's,
we all need growth in this,
I was gonna say,
that
like,
stuff.
it's funny, isn't it? Because we can kind of get a little bit on our high horse and be like, that's not really fair that they're not judging it on your athletic ability. They're judging it on how many views you get and how many followers you have. But it's exactly the same within CrossFit. Like, you're going to have games athletes that have an enormous following because they happen to be popular, and and maybe the games athletes, because they're so popular, they've had a big following that's allowed them to have sponsors, that's allowed them to go full time as an athlete, and now they can they excel. And then you've got people that are a little bit quieter maybe, or just not as I don't know, don't play to the camera as well, but they're like incredible athletes, but they just don't have the same eyes on them, so they don't get the same opportunities. And and I think we can and when I said that, whichever athlete popped into your mind at that time, that's probably who I'm talking about. So there you go.
A lot of them. I have another question. Ellen, is there exercises like at the bigger competitions that you wish you would see that you haven't seen? Or do you feel like when you go to a competition, you're like, okay, like, yeah, this is pretty well-rounded and I like everything that's programmed?
I think the hard thing for the adaptives is, unlike Paralympic sport, there's not enough participation for it to be so specified into like different disabilities. Like obviously in my category there'll be people that have like more leg function or whatever, but it would just be a seated with this, but we don't have enough participation to make it that separate, if it makes sense. So I think usually at the moment the programming is for so that presumably everyone in that category can do things, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think they're pretty good at the moment for programming wise. I mean, obviously as it progresses, people can kind of see the deadlift. There you go from Brett.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
I don't know if I'd want to see a seated deadlift. I'm awful.
Not with your chair, it's so light it will just snap. I was going to ask about that, like, because obviously you do the paracanoeing, and like at the games for years, they had kayaks, they've had paddle boards, they've had all of these kind of things. Like, would you like to see something? I'm sure you would love to see like paracanoe. Oh, that would be brilliant. That'd be a good advantage for you. But like, have they done kind of anything even close to that at any of these events?
At the adaptive events,
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen obviously the swimming, because they did a swim ski mirroring like one of the last year events. But I don't think I've seen anything like that. They do tend to, which I really like, at each like games final, tend to throw in like an absolute random thing that probably no one has ever seen before, because we don't get exposure. I think they had like this coffin kind of flip thing last time, which like no one knew how to handle, which is really cool, because it's like, wow, we've got to figure this out really quick.
An athlete.
I don't think I've seen any like kayaking or anything like that, and that would be cool to see, because that's just like another inclusion of like another sport to see.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Like, that's what we do. That's what we do with the games in general, right? Is they incorporate elements from other sports that they're like, oh, this would be cool. I think the odd objects and seeing how you handle that is really interesting.
That's because I think we don't get like that. And if you go to a regular gym or a regular CrossFit box, we're using obviously the standard equipment that is for the able-bodied. So you kind of have to become creative quite quickly. But I think them throwing something at you and trying to have to figure out the same way that a games athlete has to figure out, like, I don't know, how this weighs ridiculously heavy, how do I move it? Like, I like that element of like having to adapt to it and having the same opportunity to adapt to it.
I mean, I'm saying this based on absolutely nothing now, but I would have thought that you'd be even better at adapting to the unknown than, athletes that train all year kind of in their gym, in their sort of, and as Bethany said, like, doesn't even think about how am I going to get to the competition floor. I'm just going to walk there. It's going to be easy. There's going to be no obstacles. Whereas your whole life is like adapting and being like, okay, I found myself in a situation I wasn't ready for. How will I handle that? So seeing that put into effect within a workout, I think would be really cool. Of just being like, here's an obstacle, deal with it.
What are you gonna do with it? Yeah.
But it almost feels like, like we'd have no issue doing that to the games athletes, and it's like, oh, but they might, like, I could think back to like the first time they brought in pegboards. Like, oh, but not everyone could do it. Well, who cares? Like, that was a challenge, right?
Yeah,
if you could do it, great. And if you couldn't, you'll learn to do it next time. But I feel like it would be almost viewed as mean if we did it to the adaptive athletes.
I think that's the problem, is people have that mindset of like,
Yeah.
oh, now people are
Overly
thinking
sensitive.
like, and we need to take pity on these people because they can't do something. No, we're attempting to try something we haven't done before, same as anyone has, and we're trying to figure out how it works. Like, you don't want people to then look at you and be like, oh no, like, you can't do it because you're disabled. You want people to be like, wow, like, these people are still giving a good effort. Maybe they've done it once, maybe they can't do it again like the next 3 times, but at least they've given it a go.
Yeah. No pity.
We'll back you.
No pity.
I'll be merciless.
Make it extra hard.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh, any more questions, Bethany? I'm so glad I brought you on this week. Oh, amazing. Yeah. She agreed to come on, so just far, like, but... she's doing such a good job. I think, what day you like messaged me back on Monday or Sunday saying like,
Sunday.
I just reached out thinking like, oh, Bethany, like, I'd love to get you back on. And by the way, if you any chance you're free on Tuesday, that would be amazing. She's like, yeah, no problem. It's like, oh,
that's so good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, I like getting on podcasts because I think of it as like reps for talking, and eventually I want to do something with that in the future of like speaking. And so any and every opportunity that I get, like, I want to get on, and even if I'm not great at it and mess up, like, it's reps. Everything is a rep to me. So
that's how I need to think of talking to people.
Just it's hard.
It's just practice.
Okay. Well, you both have open invitations to be back on here anytime. I think when you first came on, Bethany, you were like, oh, thanks, I don't get invited on that much. And and now I was wondering if you're getting invited on more since like your 4th place finish in the game.
No. So it's surprising, like the first couple of years of my whole career, like 17, 18, 19, is when I got asked to do a lot of podcasts. And I think it was just more of like the newness of someone else coming into the CrossFit Games realm. But ever since then, honestly, it's like a super low percentage of what I get asked to. So I'm glad and thankful that I said yes back then to all the podcasts, because it gave me reps, right? Even when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea.
I remember there was a whole, like Arm & Hammer, and when he had the Scale as Needed podcast, they did a whole series around like the Fit Beth Games to find the fittest Bethany. And then they went to the gym and
I love that.
Like did a thing with you. You're like, superstar back then. But anyway.
But so grateful for this.
You've done very well though. All the questions that you've been asking, they've been wonderful. So we'll clip all of that and put it together as a highlight reel for you if you want, and you can send that out to people and be like, get me on your podcast. I'm good at doing interviews.
I have questions.
She comes with post-it notes. They're all written down.
She's like, I do more research than the host. Okay, go for it. That's good.
No, I didn't do any research, honestly. These come to me. Maybe I should be a podcaster.
Hey, it's so easy. Literally anyone can do it.
maybe I'll dabble in it. I do like asking questions, so
I reckon more people would say yes to you when you invite them on than they say to me. So I think you've got a good advantage there as well. You can have Ellen as like one of your first guests, but you've asked her all your questions. So
well, I just want to do a competition with her, so maybe that'll happen.
I'd love to see you guys do a competition.
I'd love it.
Well, if you want to make some,
get it done.
Get some travel plans ready for February. Come over to
where
to come over to England. Come to What Active.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be
I
kind of
mean,
cool.
I'll be honest with
England.
you. England in February
Yeah, I was about
is
to say, I am
probably not the
going
most
to-
appealing place to be.
Yeah, I know.
You're not selling
Well,
it.
I am going to, I think Germany. I don't know when, but so the Adidas headquarters is in Germany, and we're
Right.
going out there for the first week of the Open, whenever that is. They haven't put out the dates. So I think it's sometime in February.
That's
I'll be
usually like
in Europe.
Oh, cool.
So
I'll ping over to
saying.
Germany.
Well,
Yeah.
Americans are
Yeah, come to the Open
fascinating
with
when they
us.
go to Europe
I'll come to
because
Open.
you guys like, so for like, if you're in England and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to Spain, like that's it. You'll go to Spain or you'll go to Italy or France.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a whole big thing. And when I used to work in Venice, I'd get these Americans like floating past that were spending 2 days in Venice because then they were off to France and then they'd just come from Spain and then they were going through Germany. It's like you see all of Europe in a week. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible for us to kind of comprehend that. So for you, yeah, come to Germany, just jump over to England really quick. Jump over really quick.
But my
Okay,
real
for
question is like, is there any competitions in the fall, like that is like the adaptive plus normal?
Not that I can think
Like-
of.
Oh, okay.
No. So when are you coming?
Nigel's going to set one up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nigel,
right.
Nigel.
Well, I don't know the specific dates quite yet, but it's like whenever the first week of the Open is, we're supposed to head out to Germany. So
Okay.
whenever
Well,
that is, February,
It's like
March.
late, yeah, it's like late Feb that it usually starts.
Yeah.
Because it always
Yeah.
starts just after my birthday.
Hmm.
we
Happy
could put something
birthday.
together. We could create
Here's
something.
a workout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
They have one
That'd
in
be cool.
February, one in September. Nigel.
I mean,
Gonna
I
have to
could
go
do
for a year.
September
I'm
because
sorry,
that's
Nigel. It's the only
after
solution.
the season,
That's true.
Yeah. Well, we could just make like a little exhibition. We could have another, these videos we were talking about earlier, with that Josh has done and that Lauren's done and all of that.
Yeah.
Definitely, we'll get you doing one. We'll have
Alright.
you and Ellen team
That's
up for
true.
something.
I'm down.
I can always like ping down a lifting club. We could get something like that. That'd be quite fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm sure I could get something sorted.
Yeah,
And guys,
let's,
just don't suddenly like discipline and make all these plans and just like forget who sort of
Forget
got you
about
two guys
me.
together in the
put
first place.
this together.
Meeting for time saying I'll come and record. Hold on,
There we go. All right.
Roderick.
It's
I'll come
set.
and record. What are you doing? We can record together. We'll team up.
I think I have to come to Germany again in 2025 September because one of my girlfriends is getting married out there. So, but I don't know the dates of that either.
Love that.
So I could be in Germany again in September.
Nice. You're traveling a lot. Now, here's a question.
I know
for
I'm
you.
not a traveler either.
Well, I was going to ask about this because last time you were on the show, we introduced a new addition to your household
Scared
because
me.
you had a
Oh
new,
yeah.
a new kitten that had just arrived. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you not got? Oh, he's gotten big.
Yeah, he's a big fatty now. Yeah, I have a.
So cute.
Was I right in seeing that you've added another addition to the family?
Yeah, we weren't planning on it, but yeah, we have a. Okay, hold on one second. I just got groceries delivered, and he's like running through the bags. So maybe a 2-second pause, real quick. Sorry. Hey! Don't run through the bags.
You got any pets, Ellen?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
I've got my family of 2 dogs. I mean, I want to be our own dog owner. I really want a dog, really badly. And me and my partner are moving out in hopefully October time. So that's the dream. Move out, get a
Dogs
dog
are the best.
immediately.
Move out and get a dog.
Immediately.
All right, here's the other one.
Oh
Say
my
hi.
goodness.
Say
Oh.
hi.
Is this Winston?
That was Barry.
Barry.
Barry. He's
Winston's
an
the cat.
English bulldog. Yeah, Winston's the
Barry.
cat.
Winston's the cat.
Barry's our newest addition, and then I got
I
Bella
love an
here.
English
And Bella
bulldog.
has Bella just been sat there the whole time?
Yeah. You didn't hear her
Hello.
snore? She was
She's just
snoring the
chilling.
entire time.
She's
Yeah.
the most chill dog, yeah.
Hey.
What
You
happened?
say hi?
Did you manage to get her to the games?
Not this year. I did
Not this
last
year.
year.
Yeah, I know you did last year. Yeah.
It was
I saw
fun
a
last
game
year.
Behind the
mascot.
scenes. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just felt bad because she was just like in the hotel the entire time. I mean, she just sleeps. She's like a cat. She's 9
Yeah.
years old. But I just felt bad. She was just in the hotel the entire time, so I didn't bring her to Texas. I was
Oh,
like, you'll
okay.
probably be happier at home sleeping than in a hotel sleeping. So
Yeah, sleeping
but
in
it was
your own
fun.
bed, you're always more
Yeah,
comfortable when
exactly.
you know kind of
Exactly.
The dream.
Yeah, but it was really fun because like during check-in, one of the ladies that was volunteering, she was like, I saw that you have your dog here. She needs to be in your pictures. I was like, really? She can be in the pictures? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went and grabbed
Amazing.
her. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, another random question for you, Bethany, that I could probably have solved just by doing a little bit of research myself. But
Yeah.
last year at the games,
hmm
on your game stuff, did you have Flores or Shadburn?
Flores.
It was Flores. Okay, I was wondering
Yeah,
if this year was the first year that you actually had the kit printed with your
I had Shadburn last year during semifinals, and then I
semifinal, right?
switched it
Yeah.
between semifinals and the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember that you had changed your name, but like it hadn't changed on your profile, and there was all this sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
there's still certain things that say Shadburn. I'm just too lazy to change it. It's a
Yeah,
lot to change the
that's
name.
fine.
I'm
But I
like,
just thought because I saw the pictures of you and like all the Go Ruck stuff from the
yeah,
games, and obviously you've got
that's
Flores
Flores.
on there. I was like, oh, that's cool. She's actually got some like nice pics done from the
Yeah,
games with
yeah. But last year
with the
they just
correct
didn't
name.
take pictures of me. I'm
Nah,
just kidding.
no. You got to finish higher to get the pictures, Bethany. You know that's.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Just
Where did
kidding. No
Barry come from?
self-deprecating jokes. So he came from it was like my husband's co-worker's friend of a friend who had stage 4 colon cancer
Oh, okay.
and just like couldn't take him anymore, couldn't take care of him. He's 2 years old, so he's still like kind of a puppy-ish, like has puppy tendencies. And so he got rehomed like 3 or 4 times, like no one wanted him. So I'm like, he's so cute. But they are a lot of work. I will say, like him compared to Bella, my other dog, he gets like a spa day like every single day because there's like wipes and he's got like eye boogies and like his fur is just not good. So it does take a lot of work. Anyways,
Does he sound like a pig? They've always got like this
yeah.
constant snoring.
You know what? He actually doesn't snore, which is very surprising. I feel like he will when he's older, but Bella, my other bulldog, does more snoring than him. But when I do walk him in the morning, I feel like he has a bunch of gunk in his throat, and so he's like, ah, ah, like he screams as we're walking. I'm like, dude, you're so embarrassing. But he's fun. He's just a lot.
Okay, I've just remembered another question that I had. It's kind of a question, but I'm just curious. So Bethany is famous, infamous maybe, for like her warm-ups before a workout, right? Like nobody warms up like Miss Flores. Just
I've gotten better at making them
well,
shorter over the years.
you say
How
that. You
long
say
are
that.
they?
Well, they used to be upwards of like 45 minutes to an hour, but I've cut it down to like 20 to 30 minutes. I just feel like in CrossFit you got to warm up everything.
Yeah. Oh well,
As
I'm finding as I age up in the masters categories, the more I need to warm up. But
Yeah.
the reason I wanted to ask about this was not to pick on Bethany again because we've gone through her warm up history.
It's fine.
I just wondered with you, Ellen, like within kind of the adaptive divisions, I guess in general, like do you find that you need to warm up even more than like before when you were doing other sports? I mean, obviously you were younger when you were doing other sports as well and things like that. But I just sort of wondered because of the, like the fact that you are seated all the time and things like that, and you've got some hip function, like how big a part of your kind of training and your process and that is the warm up.
Yeah, I think it probably should be more. I am one of those people that is awful at getting it done. I think that's literally because I'm like 23. I'm literally like, nah, I'll be fine. I feel like this forever. Do you know what I mean?
You probably will.
I think there's a lot
mindset.
of trying to offset injuries with adaptives. Like obviously when you're using different muscle groups, like obviously I'm using my arms all the time, whereas I would be using my legs. Different muscles you shouldn't be using for that. There's a lot of trying to offset that with doing a lot of work around like shoulders and stuff like that. Like I do a lot of shoulder warm-ups before I do stuff, regardless if it's canoeing, if it's just going to the gym or doing CrossFit, just to like kind of make sure, especially like rotator cuffs or anything, you got to think like this is a constant like forwards motion all the time. So you do a lot to like offset that, otherwise they kind of feel like this all the time.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
That
I
was-
was wondering what the injury rate is. Like, it's got to be a lot higher for y'all just because you're using the same muscles pretty much every day.
I think it is. I mean, the sports that I've been through, like when I was rowing, everyone was always getting like, what's the thing that's like carpal tunnel kind of situation, that kind of thing, where you wouldn't be able to feel like your hands at the end because there's so much gripping. And it's not just like, it would always be the chair users, because the chair users aren't just gripping when they're rowing, they're gripping when they're also like in their chair. So it's like all the time. And like a canoeing, it's a lot of like shoulders and like elbows, like it's a lot of impact on that. So I think you got to do a lot more like rehab, or like me, just don't do any of it.
Just be 23 forever.
That's the other option. It's a good option, I think.
Just be 23.
So what maybe I should have gone with.
So does your workouts then, like volume wise, are you taking off like every other day to combat that a little bit, or are you working out, like a 3-day on, 2-day off split, or a 3-day on, 1 day off?
I'm usually like probably like 3-day on, maybe 3-day. No, 3-day on, then probably a day off, then maybe like 2-day on. It tends to have like 5 days a week. But sometimes it will be like, because of the training week you'll have with like canoeing or that, it will be like the whole week, and then you'll have like the weekend off, and that will be how it runs. But it just depends, really.
Okay.
Did you not say you were going to the gym after this?
Yeah, maybe.
God.
I won't be drinking caffeine. Maybe.
No, don't do that. Yeah. Yeah. Even if you're sponsored by someone, don't do that. Just pretend. Speaking of drinking, like, also Bethany's posted up a recent new technique for like taking some, was it pre-workout or something?
Yeah.
If you've
lay
not
on a
seen
bench,
this,
open your mouth and just pour everything in there.
go and see the absolute worst strategy for trying to take any sort of supplement.
Oh man,
sounds great.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, just quickly check that out. Is that like the latest post on your Instagram, I think?
Yeah.
So, so go and give that a look on Bethany's.
I'll try it out.
Oh my. It's efficient.
Yeah.
It's all about efficiency in CrossFit.
It was not efficient in any way. Was it efficient?
Just throw it in.
More than half of it ended up on your face, and like, so
efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that away straight away. Bethany, any other questions for Ellen before we? Oh, I want to ask about the future. Like, obviously, you've just said you missed out this year on the Olympics, but you've got 4 years before that. I'm assuming you're doing something between now and then. What are kind of any?
I hope so. Obviously,
well, can I ask a question before that, real quick? How long is the distance that you canoe, like for races?
Oh, 200-meter sprints. So for paras, we only have 200-meter sprints. It'd be so cool if we had like slalom and like marathon. I say it'd be so cool, but I do not like distance. I like 200-meter because it's full send. Like it's literally you don't have to think. I mean, like you do a bit, but it's more just like you go out, you go hot fast, and you finish fast, hopefully.
Yeah, you think are you saying like, it'd be so cool if we also had marathon, because then some of those other people would go and do marathon, and there'd be less competition for me.
Nice to have those people to do marathon. No, I mean for like future wise. So like obviously this year, like it was very slim that I was going to go to Paris. I've only been canoeing like the last 2 years, and you have to qualify at Worlds. You have to go to a Worlds and then qualify at Worlds to qualify a boat. I got injured just before the qualifications for Worlds. So I was like, I was kind of avoiding the CrossFit season just to kind of make sure I was fine for doing that. And then I got injured and I was like, well, like it's happened now. What can we do? And then like, obviously still qualified to go to Euros, but the next year will be like still hopefully going to like Euros, World Champs, but also doing a CrossFit season next year would be the goal, because I just, when you see something, you get such big FOMO. Like I saw all of the athletes this year, and I like saw them before the games, and they were like, I'm doing this, and I was like, I knew that it was going to be a really good year for it, and I just saw them all, and I was like, I want to make sure that I attempt or try and go there next year.
Oh, so that must have been really hot. So at the adaptive one, there was like, how many people were there that were going to the games? There was like a decent number of like UK athletes.
Sophie, Kai, Henry, there was, I'm trying to remember, there's another girl there going, and maybe Ant went as well. I think there was like five or 5 or 6 maybe.
Yeah, so like a decent number of athletes that were going to the game, and then they brought them all up to do like a picture as well, and they're like, "Oh, let's get a picture of all the athletes going to the games," and you're just sitting there in the corner like, "Ah, it should have been me."
I was like, next year maybe. But I love
Next
it
year.
because obviously my first open was when they first put adaptives in the open. So like
Nice. That's cool.
it's gonna be so cool if I can like this is like if I can qualify, because I'm not backing that everyone is still amazing. 7. There you go, Nigel. Sorry, Nigel. But like if I would manage to qualify for next year's games and see how big it's become, like it's so cool, because obviously I started when there was like maybe like 15 people in my category, and like now it's like blown up massively, and I love seeing that. So if I qualified for the games next year, that'd be so cool, because you get to see how big a thing it is now.
Yeah, I guess it's like those that have been to kind of multiple places for the games. Like they were like, "Oh, I was, I was there at the ranch initially, and then I've been here when it's been, grown to this," or they've sort of seen that growth. It's like it would be a similar thing for you. Like, "Oh, I remember, when there were like 15 people here, and that was it, and
like you've
nobody
still
knew
got
what we
some
were
of them,
doing."
like even though the category's grown, they're still dominating the category, and you're like, it's like you're showing that like you're the best of the group. Do you know what I mean? Which is what the game's about, right? You're showing you're the fittest of the whoever, so it's really cool.
Yeah, but that's nice, isn't it? When you can like, you're okay, you're the fittest. There's only 5 people here. Like that's not that impressive. And when you're the fittest and there's 500 people, then you're like, okay, that's a bit more impressive.
It's like last year I got silver at Euros, but it was because everyone that was could have been at Euros was doing late Paris qualification. So we only had 3 people in the category. So I got silver out of 3 people. And I was like, it was like, I got silver out of the people that were there. But I felt almost like cheated in a way, because I was like, there's not that many people competing. You want to know that like you've done well, and you've done what you need to do. So when I went and competed this year and there were so many more, like everyone was there, I was like happy. I was like, this is what I wanted. Like you want to prove that you're like competitive against the best, you know what I mean?
And you beat everyone this year, so
yes.
Yeah, so that's what you needed. You just needed more like fuel for the fire.
More competition.
It was so like surprising for me anyway. Like I don't know why. I think I'm quite like I'm just gonna plod along, enjoy myself, blah blah blah. Because it tries to calm me down more. Like I'm just like, So I didn't bring my podium kit to the lake on the day, because I was like, I'm not gonna podium, but I'm here to enjoy it. Like it's gonna be fun. And then when I won, I didn't even realize, because I paddled over the line. I said to my friend who just raced, "Where do I come?" And he was like, "You won." And I was like,
"You're like, oh, cool."
I was like, "Nice."
Like, where did I come? Because I couldn't see anybody else. And you're like, well, they're all behind you.
I was like, cool, nice.
Nice. Okay. Oh, would you give it a go doing the canoeing, Bethany? That's what we should do. You guys should do a CrossFit workout together, and then Ellen should take you out, and you guys could do a 200-meter sprint on a canoe.
I would get defeated by many seconds, but I'm always game to try anything.
I back you. Maybe it's you were made to canoe.
Oh gosh, that'd be so hard.
Okay, Roderick is throwing out some stats for us all here. So I'll give some context. So go look at the broadcast views of Wheelwad from 2023-2024. So it was 3,200 was the most views last year, 34,000 this year.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's definitely some growth, and I definitely saw more people like posting up kind of. Again, maybe it's a little bit because of people I follow and stuff like that, but I saw a lot more like, oh, my friend is competing here, and like showing, the kind of things I'd normally see if people like clipping, bits of you, Bethany, from the games and being like, oh, look at, Bethany's doing this. But I saw that across all these different divisions of like adaptive athletes, and that was really cool just to see it a bit more.
I agree, actually. Like I didn't really see any, even like if I did like Waterpalooza, I never saw like any real coverage from like anyone that was going to the games or posting about the games. So I was like, it's kind of like a small I was like, it feels like it's not that well recognized. And this year I've seen like everyone like really putting it out there, and I was like, that's what I love.
That's cool. Good. Moving in the right direction then.
Yeah, and they said, Bill Grant, Jeremy Austin. So having also like proper commentary, proper like media representing it's getting there. It is getting there. So but as we said, we got Ellen started doing adaptive CrossFit. They decided they'd include them in the open. now she said, yeah, she'll probably give it another run for the games. So who knows what they're going to do for her next year? They'll probably, do something
Seated
else. Even.
deadlifts.
Yeah, they said they enjoyed the commentating. That's good. Okay, well, thanks, guys. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you, Bethany, for just coming with all the questions.
Co-host.
Loved it.
Don't mind me. It's good.
But Ellen, do you have any questions for Bethany?
This is my first podcast. Like, I am just sitting here trying to like say words
This-
right.
This is what was supposed to happen. Don't put
There
it
you
on
go.
the spot. This was supposed to happen the way it was.
She might just,
You did really good. For this being your first podcast, you did
Thank you.
really good. You
Yeah.
spoke very clearly, and
You know when you're
No
having to
problem.
think
That's
about
not-
words leaving your mouth before you start saying
Yeah.
like something delusional.
Yeah.
That's good. There's a lot of concentration that's gone on here.
And at 7 p.m. at night. I don't know if I could do 7 p.m. at night. So
well,
I'm impressed.
It's almost 8:30 now, Bethany. It's even later.
Yeah, I know.
7 p.m. when we
I'd
started.
be half asleep.
I will also say I didn't know that you'd never done a podcast before this. So like that's how good you are. You're able to just
Yeah, you did really good.
Thank you.
yeah. And the comments are saying, you crushed it, couldn't tell it was your first. This was awesome. So there you go, Alan. Well done.
I'm just used to chatting
Amazing.
probably to myself. That'll be what it is.
I mean that's
That's what this
That-
is. That's what
that's
I mean. That's
yeah,
what you
that
gotta
is
think about
very
it
much
as,
what
you
this
know?
is.
Yeah,
Mm.
keep it.
So you've done this
conversational.
one. Obviously, you're going to be one of the first guests on Bethany's podcast when that
Yep.
launches.
Yeah,
we're looking
whenever I
forward to
start that.
Come back on soon. Yeah, I agree. So that's what you're saying. Come back on soon. Definitely. And then you're getting everyone to like this. What? Why?
Darwin. That's one of my boyfriend's friends.
Oh my gosh, what a friend! Jeez.
Poor guy. Yeah. He's a good guy. I've met him. He's a good, not Darwin.
Apparently, Darwin's going to be ag-eyed at work tomorrow. That's what I've been told to say.
Oh, okay. There we go.
There you go.
And then also getting some praise for Bethany. Great questions, Bethany. You're a natural. So
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks,
you're
Jeffrey.
very quickly going to have lots of subscribers. Well, thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, everybody in the chat.
Yeah, no
Really
problem.
appreciate the contributions of your questions and comments and things as well. What was I going to say? I will be back on Thursday. And if Bethany thought that this was late for people in the UK, I will be back on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which if you're good at maths and time differences, tells you that it will be 11 p.m. in the UK when I go live.
Gosh.
But I've got to tick off another of the grid teams before they have their big show in Vegas. So I have Marissa and Chris from the Tampa Bay Brigades. They'll be joining me
That's cool.
on that show. So that should be fun. So if anyone's free and they want to come back for that one, that would be good. Go give Ellen a follow on Instagram so she gets more promotion. And I think there's like a Gymshark sale on tomorrow, and you can use her code and you'll
There
get
you go.
Yeah, use her
more
code.
money
Support
off.
her. Give her
off of
support,
what's
guys.
already going to be good. Go and watch Bethany try and take like a pre-workout. It's ridiculous. So and yeah,
Stupid
thank
stuff.
you everyone. And I guess with that, we're all done here.
Awesome.
Thank you very